a repository working and shared between all of us. So I have this CPT-180 playground, and we're going to try to interface with that with SourceTree and make some commits and make a branch and push it up there so we can all see it. So I can't use my normal account, so you're going to see a different account on here. That is because of the two-factor authentication I have enabled on my personal account. Effectively breaks the way SourceTree works. I don't think you guys are going to have a problem with this. This always can be bypassed by setting up SSH keys, which apparently SourceTree is very good at, but I'm not going to provide direct instruction on that right now. So when you install SourceTree, it will already install Git for you. It'll be a separate process. You'll wait for another status bar. Very convenient. And then it'll ask you to set up some account information. And so it'll just be your GitHub username and password. If for some reason that doesn't show up, which is totally possible, you're going to go in through the application, which will look something like this, and you'll click down here on this little Show Hosted Repositories, which will bring up this window, which I've already have set up. That's why you see all the repos in there. You'll go to Edit Accounts. And if there's something wrong, there'll be a little like warning symbol here. And then you can edit this account. I did that by double-clicking on it. And then you can enter your password and your username again. I like to, if you don't click this Show Private Repositories, it actually doesn't try to log you in. So it's actually this checkbox that makes login happen. So if for some reason you're having problems pushing and it tells you that you don't log in or your login's not been set up, it's probably because of this checkbox. All right? But this is the way it should look. So go ahead and get out of here. Whenever you change that, it'll refresh this page. So let's get rid of some of this mess that I've made. And this one. Okay. So really what we should be looking at now is these repository list. Now, I've made this playground, which shows up right here. Now, this is the one owned by WCCC EDU, and that's the most important thing to realize right now. So we're going to go back to the browser. We're going to fork it so we can have our own copy. So we click on that repo, and you can always tell who owns it by looking at this part of the description. And then we'll click Fork. And so for me, for right now, I'm Paul S. Coder. So we'll wait for a little bit of this process to happen. And then you'll notice this has changed, but that there's a history link kind of linking it back to the original repo. All right, so I own this one, though, and I can commit to it. So over here in SourceTree, we'll have to bring this back up. You'll notice that that's not here yet. It's pretty quick, but it hasn't shown up yet, so we can hit the refresh button. And we should now see two of them. All right, this is a tricky thing because you want to make sure you click on the right one when you're doing your work. So this is the Paul S. Coder one. So when I double-click on that, it automatically opens this dialog for cloning a new window, which you can't see just yet, but I'll bring it up for you. So it looks like this. And what it's asking you to do is dictate to it where you would like to have this saved. Now, I like to actually have like a work repos folder or like a school repos folder, so I'd probably change this URL path, if I can, to say something like /work. Come to think of it, the way Windows works, I probably should create the folder and then change to it. So for things that's in Documents, and I make a new folder here. And I don't use any uppercases and I don't use any spaces because they get in the way of how, if you ever have to do this through the command line, it's much harder to enter paths with spaces than without. And then I want to make this, I don't want to lose the name of the repo. So when it does this bookmark repository, what that's saying is it's going to add it to your other repository list, so it's much easier to access. And we're going to check out the branch master, which is the default branch we always have. So then this will happen. If we had time to look at the full output, it would have shown us it cloning a bunch of files, listing them out. Okay, so that's done. Now we will see this back in our source tree window. This is the main window you get when you start up the application. This is that bookmark I was talking about. And it shows really nothing's going on here. The working copy is empty. The branch is on master. It shows us the remote, which is origin. That's the default name for the remote. When I created this repository, I added an MIT license, just so you got an idea what that looks like, and I added a default README. So there's already 2 files in here, so you already have some stuff, right? So let's look at this. Go on this one, and then let's open it in the Explorer. And that's all we have. 2 files in a folder that we named. We know where that's at. All makes very good sense. Let's go ahead and open and edit one of our files. And so I do have Sublime Text on this system. So I'll have to bring up that window for you. Okay, so here's my editor, and this is my README file. If I enter some text in here, I'm going to be able to adjust the working copy when I save it, and then commit this back into master. Now here's the tricky bit. We don't necessarily want to always commit into master. In fact, what we want to do is we want to create a feature branch of our work. So let's go figure out how to do that. So back in source tree, we have these branch options. And this allows us to create a new branch. And so our new branch is going to follow a very specific format. It's going to be our initials / the feature we're doing. So, you know, updating playground, for example. And it's going to be the working copy parent. All this stuff stays the same, and we're going to check out that new branch. So we're creating a new branch. It's like a folder. It's the same copy of the information we have there, except we're not going to, as the term is, pollute the master branch. So the master branch should always be 100% working, 100% valid. This also gives us some useful context. If the name of our branch is like add user login, then we've specifically said what our branch is doing, and that's why it's called a feature branch, because in our branch we add a feature. In this case, we're playing around. So we don't really have a great name to call this thing contextually, but that's all right. Now, when I create this branch, I'm only creating the branch locally. Later, when I push, it'll automatically create the branch on the remote. So now, instead of me saying I'm on master, it does this interesting folder kind of thing, but it says PKS, which is my initials, and then this branch I'm on. Now, I've already made some changes to the file. And I just realized you may not have seen that window for the branch, so we're going to do that again. So go back and check out master. I don't know if I can delete branches this way very easily. Yeah, I'll just delete this branch real quick. Okay, so go back to branch. I'll show you what that. Oh, it did show you the window. The recording software is hard to use, so I'll just do that again. Won't hurt to see it twice. Remember, no spaces. I use underscores. Okay. So all this information over here, all this extra stuff is telling us that all of these branches, all of these references, all these branches are all at the same point in our repo. They're all on the same level. And as we make changes, they'll diverge. All right, so let's go back to Sublime Text. Paul's going to be the pink ranger for right now. Okay, so now I'll save. We'll go back to source tree, which should cause us now to see something that we talked about last night, where there's a change in the graph. And if this was scrolled over, our working copy should be slightly different, and it is. So here is the README file, and here is the updates that I changed it to, right? So now I have there was a new line added, so this caused this to change a bit. And then I added these characters. This is how it identifies a diff. It looks for an anchor, which is a piece of text that didn't change. It then includes that in your diff, and then stops where there is no more changes. So that's why this line was changed, because it had to be included in that diff, even though I did not technically edit that file. All right, so I need to move this from unstaged to staged in order to commit. I can do that by clicking on the checkbox or the add button. So you get to pick. I like the checkboxes myself. Now, once I have it staged, it's ready to be committed, and I can give it a commit message. And call it the Think Ranger. And we hit commit. Our working directory will be cleared, and you'll notice that now our branches have diverged. So this is the master, origin master, right? The head is an alias basically for the top of the repo. And so we have master and origin master. The origin master is the remote one. Master is mine. That's the old stuff. This is the new stuff. All right, so now all I gotta do is push this. That's all I have to do now. So it's going to ask me where I want to push to. And this is something that's nice to help me make sure I don't make any mistakes. And what I want to push it to is the branch that I'm working on. And that all went great. So now we notice that this has changed slightly. It says PKS updating playground and the origin PKS updating playground. This is what I meant when the remote will create the branch for me automatically. So now that's the remote copy of the branch. Someone else could see that. Now, let's open a pull request and see how that looked over on the GitHub side. All right, so back to the browser. All right, so here is, I'm not looking at the right browser window though. So let's fix that. So here is the repo that I copied. Notice it says Paul S. Coder instead of WCCC, but they're intrinsically linked. As soon as I push, this showed up. This green button says compare and pull request. This will stay here for at least 20 minutes after you've done a commit of a new branch, like pushed a new branch. If it hasn't, there's another way to do this. It's super easy. There's another button for it. Everything's got a button in here, though. It's really convenient. So, once you've pushed your branch, so in your case, if your homework, a lot of times you're going to fork it. You're going to go do a bunch of work locally, and then when you're done, you're going to commit it. Now, so the first time you push that branch, I want you to come to GitHub, and I want you to hit this compare and pull request. You don't have to assume that your work is done to open the pull request. Now, when you open the pull request, you will start getting comments, but that's okay, because sometimes that feedback can be useful, especially if you're stuck. So getting some work done, and then opening a pull request, and then pinging me in it, for example, allows me to see your code and give you immediate feedback, as opposed to you bashing your head against the wall. Remember, I have like a half-hour rule? Like, give yourself about a half hour. You know, if you've been working all day, maybe go take a break. Come back to it. If it still doesn't come to you, it's time to ask for help. So, anyways, we're going to compare and pull request. Which brings up this slightly confusing window, and I only say slightly just because there's 4 items to check from. And what they're saying is the base fork. The base fork is where we would like to ask the person who owns the original repo to get our changes. So that means that we'd want them to get it in the master branch of the original repo, the one that I created for us to work with. And then the head fork, that's the one where the changes are coming from. That's my repo, and this is my branch, my feature branch. Notice there's 2 branches in here, just like mine, repo, or my feature branch and master. Now, if you'd done master, it'd been okay, right? But remember, we're trying to do the thing that is the real world. In the real world, we always create feature branches. What's cool about pull requests is it'll try to pick like the title of the pull request from the commit message. I only have 1 commit. You should try to do your best to pick a good title and then also give it an appropriate description. Now this description, unlike a commit message, which is about 1 single bit of change, this is like the overall thing, what you did. So you should try to write about, not a paragraph per se, because it's not really something that's best described in prose, but a bulleted list of the process you followed and the changes you made. And I'll be guiding you through this and trying to help you as you go. But so try to be descriptive, at least. In some cases, it may just be that what the question, the problem was you were solving, so basically the assignment, and then how you approached it, so which structures you picked or trouble you ran into, things that might be useful to a reviewer. Now, once that's all set up, we hit Create Pull Request. And I want you to notice that we changed where our location was. I am no longer in my copy. It's forwarded me back to the original. And that's where the pull request lives. The branch stays in your repo, but the pull request was made against the parent, that original one that was forked from. So there's a pull request tab on that repo. So here's the code, right? And we notice it's the 3C's ones, not ours. And this little pull request has a little indicator. There's a 1 next to it. And that's mine. And when I click on that, and so what I'm clicking on here is I'm clicking on the name, right? There's a lot of places to click in here, but really the title is where you want to go. And this will show you the conversation about the pull request and a list of the commits made with their little IDs. This is specifically the commits, and this one's the best one. This is the files changed. So when you're working on a project, you're probably going to have more than one file. This files changed will let us see all the individual files associated with the change. When you are commenting on someone's work, this is where you'll do the commenting. If you're commenting on a line, there's a mistake that you could make, because if you go into a specific commit, for example, you can also comment on the line. The risk here is that once a person pushes again, if for some reason this commit goes away, which can happen, like they get replaced sometimes, your commit message would get lost, or your message to them would get lost. But when you're working in the files changed area, this is permanent. So when you leave messages for people, where you click on the line and go, I support this, shows a little name, does this little thing, right? You get a little box in line. People can continue to comment on this and create a conversation. You can go back and edit it. That person will also get a notification. And when that person responds to it, they'll also get a notification. So everyone will get lots and lots of emails and pop-ups and things. So you're going to want to check back here on some regular basis just to make sure you don't have any work to do. It shouldn't be a lot, because you shouldn't be receiving too many comments, and those conversations last short term. And if you feel for some reason that they are the conversation has become very long, you should bring it to chat and try to resolve it quickly, or bring me in and I'll help to decide, right? I'll put the hammer down. So at the beginning, you'll see a lot of me. So I'll be Ninja Panzer at that point, because that account works on my other computer. And that's it. You create a branch, you create a pull request, you do some work. So just to start from first to end, we made a fork. This forks list shows us all the people who made forks. Right? If we click on members, it'll actually show us all the individual repos. So let's go to my copy of the repo, which is right here. I have 2 branches, right? Master and PKS updating playground. Notice there's no pull requests that are open here. There is a pull request option, but it's not open. Over on the original branch, we have a pull request, which happens to be me. And this is a discussion as opposed to the files changed. Any comments that you make in the files changed section will show up back in this. So the conversation can be pretty easy to follow, is the goal. So mostly you're tracking your changes and the comments you made on other people's. All right? That's it. We're not necessarily going to have to worry about 2 people committing to the same repository in this class. So therefore, we're not really going to worry about the pool side of things. If that comes up, though, feel free to ask me. I'd be more than happy to help you. So once you've forked and you come back to source tree, your first step is to create that branch. And when you change branches, so when you create it and it says it checks it out, that's going to change your working directory. Any files you have saved, though, will come along for the ride. What the tricky part is if you've made commits accidentally on master and then change branches, you're going to lose those. Those file changes will be lost. They're not lost. Nothing ever gets lost in Git, but they won't be available in the other branch. So that's why I'm going to try to just impart that your first step is to guarantee that you go in here and you commit that branch, or you create that branch so that you're able to do your work starting in that. So in terms of CLion projects, it means that probably what's going to happen as a workflow is once you've forked the project, once you've cloned the project, you're probably going to open CLion and then create your project there. So I'm going to start up CLion, which will take a moment. And then I'll show you what I do. Because originally I made all these changes strictly through a text editor. And honestly, Sublime Text, or CLion, is not much different than just a text editor. But it's a little deeper than that. All right, so CLion is started up. And here's an empty project. Let's go make a new project. That window doesn't show up for you. And so really all I'm going to do is I'm going to say what my project is. So this is probably going to be like assignment 1 of awesomeness. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the location. So by default, CLion loves to put its projects in the CLion projects folder under your home directory. So instead, we're going to put it under where SourceTree cloned our repo. So that's under Documents, I believe, and Schoolwork. And for the moment, we'll just abuse this playground. So I'm going to create my project in here. Our existence is not empty. That's okay. And then we'll open it up in this window. So now if I can show you what SourceTree looks like again, our working copy has changed again, and all of these files have been created. These are all the files that are associated with what CLion is working with. Now we have a choice here. These files are all actually rather large, and they're going to add some chaff to our project, which is unfortunate, but we kind of need them so that someone else might be able to clone your repo and run your project conveniently. The truth is, the only two files you actually need to make CLion work is the CMakeList file and the main CPP file. So for now, though, until we decide otherwise, because we can really filter these files out pretty well, we're just going to commit everything. So that means this upper checkbox here can be used. All right? But I want to open a new pull request. I want to make this something separate. So instead, I'll go over here to master. So I double click on master to go back to master. I'm going to create a new branch. Remember, I use underscores, and we're automatically going to check out that new branch. So now I'm on empty CLion. My files came with me. I'm going to stage them. I'm going to commit them as a test of uploading an empty CLion project. And I'm going to check this checkbox this time so that when I hit commit, it's just going to automatically push. And everything's done. And if we come back to this view, we're going to see that we've pushed all that stuff into this new branch. Now notice this little branch hasn't reintegrated yet. That's because we haven't completed the pull request. We complete the pull request, that'll come back. And let's see, where is my other browser window? All right, so we want to go back though. So now we're at the WSCCC one. We want to go back to ours, this guy. So we pushed again, and then we pushed to a new branch, so automatically it asks us if we want to compare and pull request. Same thing, you know? Once again, it's forward us back here. Notice the files changed is 8 now. And this is all those extra files that I talked about. But these are the 2 files we're really worried about. And we can make comments on them. Now, I'm going to give you this example because this is not what you want to do. Do we really want to be using namespace? We're asking a question that we already assumed that the other person should have known the answer to, and we're basically inviting, saying that they're a jerk. Well, that's what the edit button's for. Okay, we made a boo-boo. We decided that we should not use using namespace standard. I'm going to put these backticks around it, which will make it stand out in our projects. So instead of me providing a possibly passive-aggressive way of leading the person to the answer, in this case, when we're providing code review, just say the thing you're saying. Right? We decided, no, we're not doing this, don't do it, or this is incorrect, but this is why. And then let that person say, oh, you're right. Yep, forgot. And then they can go ahead and make another commit. And that's their question of what does that really look like? Well, we've made those changes on that branch. And now we want to go back to, let's get rid of this one. We don't need it anymore. And we don't need this guy anymore. So here's our C line again. We realize that that was what we did. We don't want to do that. So I get rid of that statement, and I correct where I need to add standard. We save the file. And now we go back to CLine, or source tree, and we're going to notice our working copy has changed again. It's dirty once more. There's uncommitted changes here. So we change these workspace XML file. This is going to change an awful lot. Every time we open a file, it's going to change. So I'm going to skip committing it this time because it's not really about the thing I'm addressing. So I've removed the namespace standard, and then I've edited this line, and I've added this change to it. Go to the little checkbox. We are not using. And I can use that backtick here too. You should keep your commit messages short, as much as you can. Just say what you did. Now, I'll make this commit, and it's automatically going to push. Now, I don't have to do any more to the pull request. Everything else from this point forward is fully automatic. So let's go back to the browser. Let's see what happens. So I made this comment. We get this little thing that says this page is out of date because I've pushed new changes. So things have changed. You notice the number of commits has increased. There's now 2 commits. The file number change has stayed the same. And you notice the code has changed. So once you have a PR open, you can make all the changes you want. Now, that comment I had went away, but it actually retains in perpetuity in the conversation area where it says outdated diff. So because I edited the line and committed another commit that affected the line that was being commented on, it considers it resolved. But you can always go back and look at it, and then I can say like, oh, right. Yep, 2 T's. And there we go. Everything's done. We took and responded to some comments. So I did all those steps over and over again because I wanted you to see the whole process. If you have any problems, I want you to let me know. All right? Have a great